What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Today I wanted to take a more advanced look at the content roadmap for Overwatch 2. We know that the PvE as we knew it is canceled. I'm still unsure if I'm actually disappointed or not, because the version we had played in BlizzCon 2019 wasn't that great anyway. Didn't like the Star Watch event. I'm more of a PvP player anyway, and if anything, we're just getting a much bigger percentage of the devs' time attention towards PvP. In Season 5, we're getting the Quest Watch new limited time event with a mischief and magic theme. We can assume that's tied to the Battle Pass, and Star Watch, while I didn't like the game mode, all of the cosmetics, lore, story, immersion, all that was great. So I look forward to us going to almost a Warcraft vibe with Quest Watch. I just hope that there's a little more to the limited time event as opposed to a repurposed 2CP map. There's also a cinematic reveal, the Summer Games event, which usually has Lucio Ball and possibly other things, Creator Workshop Mode Showcase, which I think is a good idea, especially for aspiring developers. That was always one major aspect of map editors, that you could make a name for yourself by using a tool like the Workshop. On one hand, it might look like they're supplementing their own content with user-generated content, but hey, Valve has been doing that for years and years and years, and it has produced some of the best games of all time. Not something to shy away from. The On Fire system returns, and I'm a little surprised that there's a 5v5 mini comp season. Okay, so we've been begging for a tournament system, and then they said it was like a ways out, but instead now we're just getting Team Q all of a sudden. Are you kidding me? I have a lot of questions about this, and the way I hope that they do it is they allow you to just group with any rank of player, and this counts as a separate rank. This is exactly what I had been asking for many years, because the regular ranked experience is balanced and tuned to try to keep things even, more or less. In our experience, it is still fairly uneven, and players seemingly slide up and down the ranks at will, and it's pretty easy to have like a lucky streak or day where you just are playing into your good matchups, avoid your bad ones, and then all of a sudden you get up a rank or two, and surprise, you're now getting countered and look like you don't know what you're doing anymore. That's just the way Overwatch is. What you can expect from a Team Q is a lot of corny, teamwork-based gameplay, because over my many years of watching this game, especially in like community tournaments, shoutcasting, either open division or any level of gameplay really, what you can do in a pre-made team is at least all go in the same direction. So whereas in normal solo queue, the meta is revolved around heroes that more flexibly operate with chaos, you might see a boost in performance from heroes like Sombra, who normally are pretty bad, or at least difficult to run with randoms. But if you both can attack the same thing together, it goes up. Another hero that gets a game mode buff from a Team Q is Symmetra, who can be advanced in her use to not just be favored on Li Jiang, but if you've got a strong Reinhardt player and you guys know how to play Brawl and teleport around the map and all take the telly at the same time, that is a devastating style to play in a group queue. The other thing, if they do loosen the grouping restrictions, which I think they just have to in order to get enough players in this type of mode, because that was one of the criticisms about a Team Q long ago, that not enough players would team up to do it. And if you have to be within a rank to play with your friends, what's kind of the point of the mode anyway? So my assumption is they're going to have to uncap that. Then it starts to feel a bit like the ranked version of quick play matchmaking, which has very loose grouping restrictions, or, fully loose grouping restrictions, but the matchmaker tries to balance out the team somewhat. I expect that's how it's going to function. And what you'll get is players that are well below the average of the lobby and players that are well above. So there might just be a Pharah one trick or Hanzo or Genji or whatever that is well outside the skill range that you're used to playing. So you and your pre-made group are going to have to devise some strategies and swaps in order to counter that. Frankly, this is exactly the type of Overwatch I've always wanted to play, because my ability to reach big peaks in the solo queue environment just doesn't really inspire me with much happiness or joy or satisfaction, because usually, for me anyway, it's if my heroes are good enough in the meta, or if I can play enough in a given role to deal with the ranked chaos, which is the case for me in support. I can play all the supports that are needed for any given comp and wacky situation, but some of the other roles feel a little lame to play because if a necessary character isn't in my pool, then I feel like I'm throwing. Whereas if I'm going to do that, I'd rather be throwing with friends. And so they know ahead of time what your hero pool is, and you guys can at least try to adjust within your own team. Whenever Blizzard does anything that's brand new, we know that we can sort of draw a trajectory for crawl, walk, run, where they start off with something simple and are aiming at something bigger. So we already knew that the tournament mode was delayed, or at least not coming out for a while. Maybe this is a first ramp on towards that. And as well, considering the entire co-op and PvE experience is in a diminished capacity, well, they're going to need some other ways for you to play the game in order to keep you coming back. And while a full team queue won't be the most popular thing, it's going to be popular among content creators and die-hard players. And frankly, I think the most fun way to experience Overwatch. So I hope that you guys get in this mode and try it out, even though I'm going to warn you, you're going to be smacked with how bad you are at the game and the skill gap between you and everybody else. The skill ceiling of certain heroes is immense, and the knowledge of what proper engagement and teamwork looks like has such a much higher ceiling than most players have playing solo queue. So this is like extreme hard mode if you've never played with a team before. And I might suggest that you try to go in on an alt account that's a little lower than where you normally play so that you don't just get steamrolled right away. While the PvE news is disappointing, this marks a new direction towards more teamwork, competitive gameplay that I'm excited to see because I think the game works well for that. It's just a bit wacky with the Overwatch matchmaker. Well, now you pick your teammates. So you better load up on that friends list with players that complement your playstyle. Now let's look at Season 6. The story missions, I think, have a potential to actually be good. Because if you think to any of the Overwatch cinematics, they're kind of short, sweet, tell a Marvel or Avengers-esque type story, and then they're out of there. The universe of Overwatch is amazing. So if we have a concentrated way to play a mission that is like an advanced version of the Overwatch archives, and Aaron Keller did say that we're going to be opening up a part of King's Row that was actually already seen in the newest version of King's Row. If you spectate outside the map, you can already see that it's partially there physically. So the assets were there since the launch of the game. They knew they were making that. It's just the RPG complexity that we're not getting, but I'm not so sure that's going to be so important as long as the missions actually feel good to play. It seems like that you're probably going to have to buy the battle pass to get access to it, but that also gives you early access to the new support hero. And while that might seem disappointing in some ways, I can't help but think that there's ways that this is actually pretty good. If they keep adding value to the battle pass without raising the price, seems pretty fair to me, and it was already pretty fair by industry pricing standards. I will say that the new support hero has me a bit worried because while Kiriko added a ton of hype to the game and allowed you to play the Overwatch 2 shooter game from the support position in a flexible way that was just unlike any other support hero we've ever had, breaking the rules of what we expect supports to be able to do with like moderate but decent healing but insane dueling and mobility. That hero makes support ready for the upgraded 5v5 flanky and shooter focused gameplay of Overwatch 2. Lifeweaver's the opposite of that. I love Lifeweaver, but his very tactical gameplay style with repositioning fits with MOBA elements that have been severely diminished in the sequel. If we still had two tanks who always battled for positioning, or an assault game mode where there was a lot of very strong and powerful high grounds, Lifeweaver would have more power as is. But as the devs have already said, they are working towards reworking him again in order to add a bit more punching power and status effects, or a new passive to what he already does. However, with how middling of a result Lifeweaver was at launch, I'm a bit concerned that a new support, while necessary to flesh out the roster, isn't going to transform the gameplay in an interesting or new novel way. In some ways, I think Overwatch 2 has just been too balanced, which is a term you'll never hear any content creator say, but it's true when you think to the casual appeal of the game. Balance is incredibly overrated because there's no such thing as balance for all tiers of play, and the version of the game we have now has a lot of the downsides of Overwatch 1 in my opinion, where supports have a ton of backline power, the tanks are kind of playthings for the support utility, and there's a lot of DPS picks that are very easy to get value on, that just sort of look at things and apply status effects, Mei and Sombra, etc. But if any luck with their newfound dedication to PvP, it seems, after scrapping the major overinvestment into PvE largely. They're going to run out of things to do beyond add new modes, and I bet we see some format changes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, at some point. A new game mode is pretty exciting. Flashpoint sounds like it's hardpoint, might just be exactly the same for all we know. I think a mode that actually requires you to play the objective, which, by the way, Push doesn't, because once you get a lead, you can avoid the objective for most of the game. That's part of the biggest competitive problem with it. I was talking with some lower ranked friends recently, and it's actually surprising because in their opinion, nobody really knows that, and they just fight on the cart or the bob all the time, when in reality in Push, you should camp a lead and maintain ult advantage at all times. Well, Flashpoint will be more user intuitive because you actually need someone to sacrifice onto the point, I assume, if it is the mode I'm guessing it to be. That gives a heavy bias to tanky brawly characters because you need someone who's a dedicated OBJ. It makes it a lot harder oftentimes for sniper or pick-off characters to thrive. We sort of already have that gameplay in Control, especially on the points that are very enclosed, where you can just jump on the objective with a brawler, hide there, cap, and gain objective progress. Different games work these kinds of modes differently. There's a chance that you're not able to gain objective while it's being contested, as opposed to Control, where once you cap it, those points keep going. If I remember correctly in Call of Duty, if there was someone on the point, you wouldn't accrue objective progress and not be getting points for that. It would go into a neutral state, but there's a lot of ways they can do it. In any case, I look forward to a new mode being added. All in all, Push, despite its problems, is a simple enough mode to enjoy with randoms, as opposed to Assault that maybe was beautiful at its best execution, was too often a waste of time as players make mistakes in the mode that make it unplayable. Flashpoint, I assume, will fit better in Overwatch 2. The hero mastery missions we will also get in Season 6, and based on the little image, it looks like it's very bare bones maps, almost like you're in VR training for the hero. And we've already seen workshop mods that are fairly popular for this kind of thing, either for aim training or specific interactions for given heroes. I think this could be like a step towards trying to master a hero or learn their mechanics. Like, they could take a given mechanic for a character that you need to execute and give you a high score for executing it really well. Whether that's hitting headshots or even just like doing 180 turns with Tracer or something, sticking hard pulse bombs, you can imagine what the limits of this could be, and players do appreciate this kind of mode because it's already pretty popular out of the workshop. If only they could make a hero mastery mode that taught you where to position. Unfortunately, I don't think that's even possible. In the final section, Season 7 and beyond, we know we're getting a new tank hero in Season 8. I sure hope it's finally Morga, but maybe he's canceled just like the PvE. We know the new tank is Season 8, but the rest of Season 7 and beyond is a bit more vague. A new collaboration event, probably with an anime, a new control map, new winter event, even more hero mastery missions, but these will be multiplayer. I think those would be really cool if there was specific combos that either made sense based on normal team comp synergies for Overwatch PvP, or maybe lore-based combos like Junkrat and Roadhog. The Roadhog rework we have been waiting on is going to be Season 7 or beyond. They were looking to give him more teamwork brawly capabilities, but if I had a guess, if we look at how they redesigned Brig again to give her a moment where she has that same big play opportunity, I almost wonder if there's going to be a way for Roadhog to increase his damage or one-shot capability, especially in his transformation form. Roadhog underwent a very strange rework in the 132 experiment way back in Overwatch 1, where his take a breather gave a little fart cloud that gave fortification and healing to his allies and a small AoE. Junker Queen has an AoE shout, and they already are kind of similar with their self-heal and shotgun, and if they both have teamwork abilities like that, might be a bit more overlap than they like. However, they already have been breaking that rule, or it's not even a rule at all anymore, so maybe that's the direction they go. Either way, quite a ways out for the Roadhog rework. The same for the fabled Sombra rework, where Jared Ness gave a pretty big clue, almost edging towards exactly what they're going to do, saying there's going to be opportunities for her to be more about dealing damage and less about the disable, I suppose. And it sounds like almost anything of her kit is on the table to be looked at. My guess is that they're going to add a backstab mechanic, as I think it would make her interesting, give you an outplay potential, because if you look at her to duel her, she won't be as effective, but if she catches you out, she kind of fits the stealth flanker playstyle. And what I certainly hope they do is get rid of the perma stealth mechanic, especially hacking while in stealth. There's mechanics for Sombra that are like only really good in coordinated play and then are kind of like middling to not even a factor in unorganized play, making her a very wonky character that either dominates one meta and is useless in another. That's going to keep happening until they fundamentally address some of the base kit and design of the character. Otherwise, in the Season 7 and beyond, we've got fan favorite modes returning, more cinematic debuts. Remember, we're getting one in Season 5 as well. Competitive mystery heroes will return. There will be a lore codex. So while we might not be getting the massive story expansion we might have hoped for Overwatch 2, we'll at least be able to read about the story. Oh gosh. And that's everything for this seasonal roadmap. Things looking a lot better for us PvP players, but perhaps disappointing for those that wanted an entirely separate pillar for the Overwatch experience. Well, there is kind of that, but just to a much diminished degree from what we were expecting. It's not so much a brand new standalone game, but instead just like mini expansions on Overwatch 2, which I'm in a wait and see mode with this. I know some of the things that they've put out so far aren't cutting it for me as far as the supplemental content, but the PvP has got me pretty happy, although I do want these extra new ways to play and more things to do. It felt a bit strange when they didn't really announce anything about PvE way back at the launch of Overwatch 2, and I feel like we should have taken that silence as deafening. We should have seen this coming, but maybe during their internal development, it just wasn't panning out, and they wanted to buy time to try to pull the rabbit out of the hat, but it just wasn't happening, so they had to pull the ripcord instead. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.